Welcome back to another deep dive. Look, we all know the AI space is moving at light speed. And if you're a focused learner trying to cut through the noise and get straight to the facts, you are exactly in the right place. Today, we've got a truly fascinating explainer lined up for you because we are unpacking and completely decoding the newly released, highly detailed performance benchmark table for Opus 5. We're going to look at how it stacks up against the heavyweights and, most importantly, what these numbers actually mean for the real-world capabilities of these models. Let's get right into it. So at first glance, the raw data is, well, it's a lot. It's this incredibly dense 12 by 4 grid comparing Opus 5 to its major peers, Fable 5, its own predecessor Opus 4.8, and GPT-5.6 Sol, across 12 distinct categories. If you just try to read the data top to bottom, it's honestly overwhelming, and you completely lose the narrative of what's actually happening at the frontier of AI right now. We really need to structure this information and break it down to truly grasp the leaps being made here. Okay, let's dive into this. Instead of getting totally lost in the numbers, we're going to group the data into digestible, real-world themes. By organizing the information this way, we can see exactly where Opus 5 is pulling ahead, where the competition is absolutely fierce, and where the entire industry is still kind of hitting a wall. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the benchmark scorecard, then hit novel problem-solving leaps, AI as a coder, real-world business tasks, specialized fields and biology, and wrap up with the state of AI. Section 1. The benchmark scorecard, a high-level view. This single metric for Agentic terminal coding on HealthBench version 0.1 perfectly illustrates the generational leap we're witnessing right now. Opus 4.8 was sitting at 21.1%. Now Opus 5, it jumps all the way to 43.3%. I mean, that is literally a doubling of capability in just a single generation. But it also sets the stage for the tight competition we're going to be tracking today. GPT-5.6 Sol is holding strong at 34.4%, and Fable 5 is right there breathing down its neck with 33.7%. It's a massive leap forward for sure, but man, it is a fiercely contested space. Section 2. Novel problem-solving leaps, the generational jump. Now, this is where things get genuinely astonishing. If you want to see the most dramatic exponential leap in this entire dataset, this is it. On the ARC AGI3 benchmark for novel problem solving, which, as you know, tests a model's ability to figure out logic puzzles it hasn't explicitly been trained on, Opus 4.8 scored a mere 1.5%. GPT 5.6 Sol pushed that boundary slightly to 7.8%, but Opus 5, it exploded to an impressive 30.2%. We aren't just talking about iterative tweaks here. We are looking at a fundamental shift in how the model handles completely new logic. And what's really interesting is this massive number right here, 90.8%. This represents Opus 5's score in agentic search on the BrowseComp benchmark, which is absolutely crucial for how well an AI can autonomously navigate and find information online. Opus 5 narrowly beats out GPT 5.6's 90.4%. Fable 5 and Opus 4.8 are also up there in the mid to high 80s. But actually cracking that 90% threshold, that shows a seriously high degree of reliability in autonomous search tasks. Section 3. AI as a coder. The developer's landscape. For the developers and tech professionals tuning in, this is probably the most critical area of evaluation, right? How well can these models actually write, debug, and manage code? Well, the crucial takeaway is that Opus 5 doesn't win everywhere. When we check out the Deep Sway version 1.1 benchmark for agentic coding, GPT-5.6 Sol takes a clear, definitive lead. It scores 72.7% compared to Opus 5's 68.8%. This tells us that while Opus 5 has made massive strides, GPT-5.6 Sol still retains a highly optimized architecture specifically suited for certain complex software engineering environments. It's super vital to understand these nuances rather than just declaring one model the universal winner. And just look how razor-thin the race is on the Frontier Code version 1.1 main benchmark. Fable 5 actually edges out Opus 5 here by just 0.1%, 53.5% to 53.4%. Both are significantly ahead of the older Opus 4.8 and GPT 5.6 Sol in the specific test, but the gap between the top two is virtually non-existent. It really highlights just how intensely competitive the frontier of AI coding capabilities has become. Every fraction of a percent is a hard-fought battle. Section 4. Real-world business tasks, knowledge, and workflow. So it's great if an AI can code or solve abstract logic puzzles, but how do these models perform on practical, everyday business operations like knowledge work? When we look at raw knowledge work measured by the GDP Vol AV2 benchmark, Opus 5 leads the pack. It achieves a score of 1861, putting it comfortably ahead of Fable 5 at 1747 and GPT 5.6 Sol at 1736. If you're utilizing these models for deep research, data synthesis, or heavy text analysis, this metric suggests Opus 5 currently holds the advantage in processing and structuring all that knowledge effectively. We also see a distinct, tangible jump when it comes to handling multi-step business workflows on AutomationBench. The previous generation, Opus 4.8, sat at 17.0%, and GPT 5.6 Sol is right there at 18.1%. But Opus 5 pulls away here, reaching 26.0%. Now, while 26% might seem kind of low in an absolute sense, it actually represents a substantial relative improvement in an AI's ability to reliably string together complex administrative or operational tasks without human intervention. Section 5. Specialized Fields and Biology, Niche Expertise. This category focuses on highly specialized domains. We're looking at how these models perform when tested on rigorous subjects like law, health, and complex biology. In the legal agent benchmark, specifically the held-out set, which tests on completely unseen data, Fable 5 actually takes the crown at 13.3%, outperforming Opus 5's 11.7%. What's particularly notable here is that GPT 5.6 Sol struggles significantly in this domain, dropping all the way down to just 2.5%. This brilliantly illustrates how general capability doesn't always translate perfectly to highly specialized, jargon-heavy fields like law. Now, before we dig into the science scores, I need to briefly clarify an interesting quirk in the data. Under the Fable 5 column, for specific health and biology benchmarks, the source utilizes a label called Mythos 5. This basically indicates a specific variant or potentially a specialized tuning of the model used just for these precise scientific evaluations. And when we look at the HealthBench professional numbers, we can see exactly why that variant matters. The Mythos 5 variant impressively dominates this specific category, scoring 66.0%. This puts a comfortable distance between it and GPT 5.6 Sol at 60.5% and Opus 5 at 59.8%. So if your focus is medical data or health professional benchmarks, this targeted Mythos 5 variant is absolutely showing a distinct edge right now. The nuances continue into the biology benchmark, known as BioMysteryBench. On problems categorized as human-solved, the scores are incredibly high across the board. Opus 5 leads with a strong 90.1%, with Mythos 5 right behind at 89.0%. However, the data also breaks out a hard category. On these much more difficult biological problems, Opus 5's score drops significantly to 49.4%. It's a pretty stark reminder that while these models can easily match human baselines on solved problems, they still face massive friction when trying to reason through the truly difficult, unsolved frontiers of science. Section 6. The State of AI. What this means for the future. Okay, we've gone through the data, and we've broken down the numbers. The key takeaway here is twofold. First, we are looking at a landscape of exponential leaps. Opus 5 shows massive generational improvements over Opus 4.8, particularly in novel reasoning and agentic workflows. But the second takeaway is that this is an incredibly tight, specialized rivalry. Competitors like Fable 5 and GPT 5.6 Sol are definitely not being left behind. They absolutely hold their ground and even win out in specific, highly complex domains like software engineering and specialized health tasks. There is no single perfect model anymore. There are only optimal models for specific tasks. Which leaves us with this final thought. We saw novel problem solving on the ARC-AGI3 benchmark jump from a barely registering 1.5% to an astonishing 30.2% in just one generational cycle. It forces us to ask, if this is the trajectory of exponential capability, what on earth is the next benchmark table gonna look like? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.